Hi everyone, I'm here at the Data and Analytics Summit in London with one and only Elif Tutuk, Global Head of Product at Scale. I'm looking forward to learning more about data and analytics, AI, semantic layer, FinOps, data personas, and much more. Elif, welcome to the Ravit show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. It's
such a pleasure. Yeah,
and finally, meeting you in person.
So nice to see you, right? And definitely, I'm pretty sure our audience would love to learn a little about you and what you do at AtScale. So can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, sure. So I run the products organization at AtScale. I spent almost 2 decades my career in data analytics space. I'm passionate about really increasing the data literacy and analytics adoption at organizations. And
right.
Yeah, it has been a fun journey so far, joining at Scale, and then really leading the semantic layer and the
exactly.
enabling organizations with the cloud analytics.
Yeah, talking about semantic layer, that kind of also brings me to another question is, we've been hearing semantic layer all around here in the last 3 days at Gartner as well. So can you tell us more about it, why it is so hot right now, why is it being talked so much now? If you can share some insights on that.
Yeah, sure, I would love to do that. Yeah, it is hot. It is just amazing, actually. When you think about semantic layer, it's kind of the dinosaur in the room. It has been around since the beginning of BI, and I think there's a reason for that, right? So, because you cannot just let the raw data, or even if it's analytics ready, to be consumed by the analytics or the business users,
right?
You have to make that data business ready, and that is where the semantic layer, where you make that definition of the data to start talking the language of the business.
Exactly.
So, and why it is hot right now and there's more trending, because there are a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a huge data gravity to cloud, right? So, every enterprises are in the middle of moving their data to cloud.
Exactly.
And when you move to the data to cloud, you still would like to do analytics on that, right?
Right.
It's all about data-driven decisions, and you have to have multi-dimensional analytics capabilities on that. So that is number one thing about semantic layer. You have to be able to multidimensionally define your metrics, but it's not only the metric store.
Yeah.
You have to have the dimensions and the drill downs and the hierarchies.
Exactly.
You have to create that. So that's number one thing. And then the other thing about the semantic layer, as I mentioned, it's just we are seeing more and more BI tools. There's no organization that uses one BI tool.
Exactly, right.
And for me, I'm really passionate about self-service analytics.
Wow.
So you have to let the user to use their analytics tool of choice. It can be Excel, Power BI, Tableau, Click. And that is the other reason. The semantic layer sits in between the cloud data warehouses, and then all of that BI and analytics consumption and AI consumption is happening via the semantic layer.
Okay, this is pretty good insights there, and it kind of also brings a lot of insights for our audience to understand why semantic layer is so hot right now. And can you also share a little about, though I was thinking around asking this towards the end, but how do you see the future of semantic layer?
I think it's super exciting just to have the chance to innovate.
Yeah, exactly.
This dinosaur, and then
right.
So, a couple things. I think I'm seeing more and more different data personas in the whole data analytics supply chain.
Right.
So analytics engineer, in the last couple of years we have seen the rise of that, and I think with the data moving to cloud, there's the change of ETL to ELT, and now that new persona, cloud, doing more code-based, markup-based language, semantic or definition of the data, business definition of the data.
Right.
So number one innovation for me is, AtScale has been having a great graphical user interface to do the semantic modeling and the metric store definition. Now we are going to launch, we have the AtScale markup language.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so super exciting. So I think my goal is to really welcome all of the data and analytics personas to the semantic layer, and that's going to enable that. The other thing I want to highlight is this concept of metrics engineering.
Okay.
So I think so far, in a space we have been thinking that there's the metric store, but I'm just thinking about this concept of metrics engineering, how you can more programmatically maintain the definitions of those metrics. So that's another area that I think we will see more innovation. At least from AtScale, we will see.
Yeah, amazing.
And then the other final thing that I want to highlight, I really would like to achieve the next generation of the metric store, which is more augmented insights are part of the metric store. I think those are the kind of like the couple things that I want to
Yeah,
highlight.
no, I think these are fantastic points out there. So thanks for sharing that, Elif. Also, that kind of brings me to another important question: is shifting gears a little bit here. But in terms of we've all heard about the decentralization, the decentralization of analytics in the data and obviously all the terms: data mesh, data fabric, data franchise, or whatever you call it, like hub and spoke. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think that is one of the trend that I'm seeing at the Gartner as well. Like, the keynote, Gartner has covered the concept of having a more franchise approach to governance. So I think we have to do a rethinking about how we approach the governance. Like so far, we have been always saying that single version of truth. Yes,
Yeah.
that is needed. But in the meantime, you need to give the flexibility to business users. Like,
Right.
because I think we live in an environment right now, you never know what's going to happen. Like, so the business units needs to be more flexible, more agile,
Right.
and then should have a mechanism to reflect the business moment to the data.
Exactly.
And this is where I see that more adaptive governance approaches needs to be taught. And yeah, within AtScale, we have been referring this as a hub and spoke approach. Like you have a central governance, but then you enable the decentralized innovation at the business units.
Oh, wow.
I love hearing Gartner talking about franchise approach because
Nice.
when you think about franchise, there's the central definition of what that franchise should look like, but
Right.
then every local market there's adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like this is the spectrum that we are seeing right now. Like from central governance, you have to think about the business units and then really thinking about how you enable those business units to create their own, innovate their own data products
Yeah, yeah.
with a central governance in place.
Exactly. That's a good alignment with Gartner for sure. So yeah, kudos to that, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So another interesting question that I have for you is around the data personas. I know we've obviously spoken a little about that, but why do you think there's a need of a lot of data personas out there? What's your story like? What's your thought around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like, from innovating in the technology space, especially data analytics, sometimes I think we come up with a persona like citizen, data scientist, or but on the other hand, I also found that like, the actual users, they create their own personas as well.
Right.
And that is what I've been highlighting with the analytics engineer. There's the data engineer. There's the data steward persona. And
Yeah.
when you think about how these new personas is going to fit into this new governance model, the way that I see that is, there's a data steward that is more centralized.
Yeah.
But then there's this data engineers or also the traditional BI developers are still there.
Yeah.
And they are working more closer to business units.
Right.
So we need to really welcome them to the semantic layer where they can actually be, more agile and flexible,
Yes.
making data business ready by reflecting the business moment to data.
Yeah.
And then enable the rest of the 80% of the business users consuming and making data-driven decisions. So it is a very exciting time to be in the space.
Yeah.
And especially like we are seeing AI and ML. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've been part of it, like,
Oh, wow.
about asking about ChatGPT, of course.
Yeah.
It's the new buzzword, and it all comes to how you make the data more accessible to users.
Yeah, exactly. And also having that business language is kind of, very important in these exciting times, I feel. And AI does a lot of that for you as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have some innovation thoughts around that
Oh,
as well.
wow. Can't
Yeah.
wait for those announcements
Yeah.
coming out. So, yeah, if you want to get the secret sauce, reach out to Elif separately. Offline, maybe she might share it with you. But another interesting, question that I had was, and that's a hot topic as well, which is around FinOps. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. It is, I think, in this economy that we live, especially this year,
Yeah.
like I see the CFOs are the new CEOs. And then, as I mentioned, there's so much movement of data and all of the services to cloud.
Right.
And now the organizations are realizing that there has to be better monitoring and more predictability on the cloud consumption.
Right.
So FinOps is a larger, broader term because there are many services that are moved to cloud, especially after pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's part of the overall cloud cost.
Yeah.
But what I'm very interested is this analytics consumption that is happening on the cloud environment. So that's one of the innovation that we are working on with AtScale.
Okay, wow.
So like, I just want to say, like,
Yeah.
Ravit, like, we have been always thinking for semantic layer more in a traditional term.
Right.
Like semantics about the data, yeah, it's about passive metadata.
Exactly.
But then with AtScale especially, like we connect to multiple BI tools and AI tools as well.
Right.
So AtScale becomes the natural gateway of all of the analytics conversations happening in an organization.
Right.
So I want to take
Got
a
it.
pause in here.
Yeah.
So like AtScale engine sees all of the analytics queries in an organization. So it knows like which user is using what metrics, when was the last time they have used it, and what queries
Nice.
those metrics has generated. So this is a great opportunity for us to really tie the economic value of analytics back to the cloud consumption and cost.
Exactly.
And then
Right.
provide that visibility. So I'm excited in our June release. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a preview.
So you're gonna save a lot of money for a lot of enterprise company, right?
Yeah, it's not only saving about money,
Money,
it's
right,
really like
yeah.
helping them to become more predictive in their cloud
Efficient as well,
consumption.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, like in my whole life in analytics, I never had the chance to really help my users to prove their investment to analytics.
Right.
And this is the chance we can really show, okay, this is the metric, like lifetime of a customer, and this is the mostly used metric, and these are your users, and this is the queries using it, how much it costs, how much business value you are getting it. Like, we are going to expose that via AtScale. So, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. These are amazing insights. Thanks for that, Elif. One last question for you is more around the themes that you've been listening around. Definitely, generative AI. AI is one thing that we've been listening since last 3 years, 3 days. Sorry. So, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so like of course generative AI, LLMs, like that is how as humans we will start interacting with the technologies in a much more effective way. And then the other thing is as I mentioned, like governance, like governance is everywhere, but there's this new rethinking about how we can provide more flexibility with a central governance, but really enable the decentralized innovation.
Yeah.
The other thing, it wasn't much a theme, but just like it's a kind of a conclusion for me.
Yeah.
Like we have to think about new versions of data.
Yeah.
So it's not about like single version of data anymore. Now there is the innovative version of the data with AI. Then when you think about the real-time IoT machine, there is this machine-generated data, and that goes to the process automation.
Right.
Like there are different versions of the data that we have to think about.
Exactly.
And for me, it is just now I start thinking, what is the play of a semantic layer with all of these different versions of the data?
Very true.
And how we can use the semantic layer to surface up the analytics power of all of that data.
Okay, this is amazing, Elif. You are out there, obviously making all the you providing all the great info that the community is looking out for, but I'm pretty sure this is not enough. They would want to reach out to you. So what's the place where can they reach out to you and learn more about semantic layer, about FinOps and much more?
Yeah, I would love to have conversations. People can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just like if you are more curious about AtScale, just come and visit our website. And
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Ravit. Like it was.
Oh, it was amazing. Thank you very much for joining the Ravit Show. It's always a pleasure to host you, Elif, and love the work that you're doing. Thank you once again.
Yeah, and thank you for creating this awesome community, Ravit. Like we all love about talking about data and analytics, and thanks to you, we are able to do that and share our knowledge. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today.